You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. Today I got to speak with Sienna Beckman from all the way across the pond. Sienna is the co-founder and creative director of Emergence Films, based in London and LA. Living and working in Los Angeles for 10 years, Sienna has produced for NBC Universal, Scott Free Productions, Verizon Go 90, Fullscreen Media, Esquire TV, Refinery 29, Prettybird Entertainment, and Disney's Maker Studios, among others. Emergence Films is a film and television development and production company dedicated to championing female filmmakers and committed to creating more opportunities for underrepresented voices in storytelling around the world. In addition to producing, Sienna is an active member of Women in Film and TV UK and Time's Up UK, and she hosts a speed networking event series with WFTV to promote the hiring of more female crew members, creatives, and technicians. We talked all about her finding her place in London and growing her company. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Now keep in mind this was recorded the last week of September, so we recorded remotely, and any references to recent times may already be outdated. And if we refer to the upcoming election, obviously it hadn't happened yet, so that is the context. Okay, here's my conversation with Sienna Beckman. Have a listen. What do you do?
I am a film and television producer.
And you have a company called Emergence Films?
I do indeed, yes. So co-founder of Emergence Films with my creative partner, Rachel Noel James. And yeah, we are a film and television development and production company that is committed to supporting female identifying filmmakers and underrepresented storytellers around the world.
Well, you are speaking my language and right up my alley. So let's talk about your background a bit and what led you to this. How did you start out in the business?
Great question. Yeah. So I'm originally from California. So I went to college in Los Angeles. I originally studied theater, but going to school in Los Angeles, I think I kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to work in film, but pretty much started working right after I graduated, and I worked in production. So my background's in production. I started working as a first assistant director and then kind of moved into the more production side of things. So production managing, line producing, and eventually I got hired at a YouTube channel with the wonderful Anna Akana. She continues to be a huge inspiration to me today, but I worked with her for a couple of years. We made a lot of short films together. We did a lot of sketch comedy. We did a 12 episode sketch comedy show with Fullscreen. And that was kind of where I really cut my teeth on independent producing, small crew, small cast, just kind of run and gun style, but still she was kind of the first inspiration for me where she had her YouTube channel and she made money through brand deals through there. And every project she made, every film that she created, she always paid everyone. No matter if it was $100 a day or whatever it was, everyone always got paid. And I always really admired her for that. So I kind of tried to take that with me as well, where it's I'm not really here in the business of asking people to do favors because that's not a business. People want to do this as their profession. So let's at least kind of try to set that bar. And especially for women, it's something that I think we struggle against. You want that experience. Oh, don't worry, you'll get a credit for it. And it's we all start somewhere. So that kind of work is totally, I've worked for free. I still do it sometimes, depending on the project, if it's something I believe in or I'm passionate about. But at the end of the day, we're all here to, make
People have bills to pay.
Exactly. Yes.
I'd love to hear about producing for a YouTube influencer. Is it just massive content all the time? Is it making something every single day? What does that look like?
She did a weekly video, which I sometimes was involved in, but mostly she was very self-sufficient. She would kind of do those herself. When she wanted to branch out into more scripted stuff and more kind of sketch comedy, as opposed to just the kind of talking to the camera style of videos, that's where I kind of came in. So it was a lot, but it definitely wasn't every day. So I worked with her from kind of every stage of the process. So we would solicit for script ideas, for sketch comedy ideas, and then we would select some. Again, she would pay people for their work, even if it was a little bit. And then we'd select them. I would schedule them. We'd cast them, usually using people that she knew, friends and comedians that she admired, which was always really fun. And I would say probably we would usually try to block shoot them because it was easier. So we'd pick a weekend or like 3 or 4 days where it'd be like, we're going to shoot 6 sketches in this weekend, which was a little bit hectic always because you're kind of I've got everything. My car trunk is full of all of these props and all these everything, trying to get it all done. We'd find locations around LA, which is where we were. And just try to jam them out. So that was always hectic. And then we'd go into the post-production process where we get them all edited, ready for YouTube. And she would then release them usually kind of, I think with the scripted, the more sketch stuff, it was usually every other week or kind of once a month-ish. So she would pepper them in with her kind of regular weekly videos.
So at what point did you think I'm going to open my own shingle and it's going to be this mission-driven, focused thing?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I don't know if I can pinpoint a moment. I think it kind of happened naturally with Rachel and myself. So as I was kind of working as in production, what kind of tricked it off for me was that when I was on set, especially when I was first starting out, I started working as a PA or as a runner or as like an assistant of some kind. I would come on set and I would be one of like 3 or 4 women on like a set of 150 people. And it was just so daunting, and I didn't feel like I could learn. I didn't feel like I could ask any questions. I just felt so isolated. And that was kind of became a very common thing, especially as I kind of started working my way up. So I started working in higher roles and I was more in charge, and people would still come up to me and ask me or treat me like an assistant or just kind of have those kind of, which I know a lot of women have experienced that kind of thing.
Yeah. Could you get the coffee when
right.
You're really like making the deal?
Excuse me, I'm the line producer. I sign your checks. Like, go get your coffee your damn self. Yeah, exactly. So that kind of stuff. And experiencing those kind of microaggressions that we now have that nice term for, which I really love, but also very blatant stuff where people would come up to me like, oh, are you hair and makeup? No, like what, why would you, and just those kind of assumptions, which is like, frustrating. So that kind of, it kind of built from there. But so especially when I started working for Anna, but before that as well, I kind of made it my mission where I was like, I want to hire more women because what's the way to how do you fix this problem?
Yeah.
Of not many women working on set. You hire more women. That's what changes the percentages,
It's simple. It's remarkably simple.
Yeah. Exactly.
Let's form some committees and discuss it.
Right, exactly. Oh, wait, I have a solution. So that was kind of just something, it felt like an easy fix. I met a lot of wonderful, I branched out in terms of the people that I worked with. I got hired by a lot of men, which was wonderful. But then when it was my turn to be the hirer or the work giver, I really tried to make it a goal to hire as many women as possible.
To play devil's advocate, where did you find those people?
Oh, a great, a vast, I don't know, a wide array of different places. I think a lot of was reaching out to friends, saying, hey, I'm looking to fill this position. Do you know any women who I can reach out to? Facebook groups. I think when I first started out, now there is this wonderful Google group, which was started by the fantastic Emily Best, who runs Seed and Spark. And she has a Google group email list that's called Women and Intersectionality in Moving Pictures. And it's thousands of women now. I think it started off just like kind of her circle, and it's grown into this wonderful, beautiful group of support and supportive women. I say women, female identifying people, I should say. So I reach out to that group a lot. That has been a huge asset for me in terms of hiring and in terms of finding creatives to collaborate with. But back then, just kind of looking on the kind of Mandy and the online kind of crew sites, but specifically, looking for resumes from women.
Because they're out there. Let the record show.
There. Absolutely. Yeah. And then, to answer your question, so to that kind of led, I've always really liked the creative side of things. I studied theater. I went to a liberal arts college. So that was, I think the liberal arts education really gave me that kind of full spectrum of, we didn't just study one thing in terms of theater. We didn't just do acting or didn't just do directing or writing or scene design or whatever it may be. You had to take a class in all of those things. And that is where I discovered my love of power tools. And I worked in the scene shop for almost all of the years that I was in college, because I was like, I love this. This is so cool. And it's something I never thought I would do. But I think that liberal arts education really gave me I think what brought me into producing, because you could see everything that's going on and appreciate all of the skills that other people have, but not necessarily having to have those skills yourself.
Mm-hmm. But understanding the big picture.
Exactly. Yeah. So being able to understand the big picture. So I've always loved the creative side. And so when I was working as a line producer, which is not the most creative of positions, kind of basically a glorified accountant, but a very well-paid one, I was kind of missing that creative side of the filmmaking process. So when I connected with my now creative partner, Rachel, we had gone to the same college, but she was a senior when I was a freshman. So we weren't really very close when I was there, but we connected after I'd graduated, because she had just written, produced, and acted in her first feature film. And I was kind of like, how did you do this? Can I pick your brain? Yeah, exactly. I was like, tell me everything, please. And we had this really lovely coffee. We sat down, we talked for a couple of hours, and we just really clicked. And she was like, well, do you want to read some of my other scripts? And I was like, yes, please. I would love that. And I loved them. I think she was really into the kind of she had strong female characters. And I was like, yes, let's see what we can do. So we decided to start working together in terms of trying to develop and pitch the scripts that she had already. And then what we decided to do is kind of just make like a company ban, I'll put air quotes around company, like a banner to say, to make it feel a little bit more professional when it's not just the two of us, we have a company. And that's where Emergence Films kind of came from. It was just very organic and very natural. And then from there, so that was still in LA, and I was still living in LA at the time, but we tried that for a couple of years. We hit a lot of roadblocks. It was a lot of the kind of stereotypical, stuff that's still, as I'm further along in my career, I understand is still very valid, but what cast do you have attached? And, do you have financing already? And blah, all these kind of things that you have to have in place already before you're like, I'm trying to look for financing. I'm trying to get cast. I'm before those steps, but it's really hard to get people to sign on for projects that early on, which I'm learning more about now. But at the time it was just closed door after closed door. And I think by that point I had been living in LA for about 10 years. And I was kind of like, I think that's enough. I never really connected with LA as a city. I think kind of retrospectively, I loved the people that I worked with. I loved my job. I loved my apartment and my roommates. I loved my kind of nucleus, but just the city as a whole, I found very unfriendly. And just you're in traffic all the time, which makes people crazy and very angry. Yeah, just people are rude. They're very self-centered, which is everybody's there because they're trying to make it in the biz, which is what I was trying to do too. So I can't really fault them for that. But at the same time, it was just every conversation kind of turned into well, are you important? Are you going to help me with my career? No? Okay, cool. Bye. And I'm like, really? Can't we just have a conversation about something nice? I don't need your resume. I don't need your list of all the projects you've got going on. I want to have a friend. But it was hard it just felt like people never really turned off in LA, which I found quite exhausting.
It's funny. I had a very similar experience, and what changed it for me, I've been in LA for over 20, I want to say almost 30 years now. No, 20 some years. But the thing that changed it was having kids and putting them in school. And suddenly then I felt like there was a community of people who wanted to talk about something else.
Yeah.
it took until then.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And I don't have any kids, so it was, just kind of that.
I get it. Yeah.
Struggle. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to open my doors to a wider world. And when I was in college, I had done a semester abroad in London. So I'd spent 3.5 months there and absolutely fell in love with the city. It was so freeing, and there's public transportation, the tube here. We got our Oyster cards, which are the tap cards that you use on the pub, on the underground. And we got a monthly pass where you paid some very small amount of money because you're a student, and you can go anywhere within a certain, the certain zones. And so I grew up in a pretty small town in California in the mountains. So we always had to drive everywhere. And then moving to LA, you have to drive everywhere. So when I got to London, I was like, oh, I don't need a car. I don't need to worry about parking. I don't need to worry about gas. I don't need to worry about drinking too much and then having to drive home, which is such a problem, I feel like, in LA. I mean, hopefully less so now with like Uber and rideshare stuff, but I just absolutely loved it. So when I was thinking about moving away from LA, I was like, if I'm honest with myself, if I'm going to go, I might as well go big. So I was like, I want to move to London.
So great.
Yeah.
So how did you do that as an American?
Oh, that's a great question. So initially,
as all Americans right now are leaning in, how do you move to London exactly? We're all interested.
Yes. So initially, that was the question that I had to figure out, because I was like, how do I do this? I did a lot of research and again, got a lot of closed doors. So I decided to do a master's program. That was kind of the first step. Getting a student visa into the UK is the fastest and easiest way, but it is definitely not the cheapest. I will say that. So that was kind of my initial thought. So I did a master's program at the Met Film School in London, which was on the business of producing film and TV, which actually, I never thought I would do a master's program because I was like, I'm already working. Why? Like, why would I need to go back and do higher education? But because I was essentially not switching industries, but like production and development are very, very separate in the film and TV world, which I don't know, I don't really love. Like, I wish it was kind of more integrated, but that's kind of the way that it is. So I had tried to pick up information and knowledge along the way and do a lot of reading and kind of educate myself, but figuring out that I could do sit down in a classroom setting where I can ask as many dumb questions as I want and not feel like I need to already know this information, which I think is a big pressure in the film industry to be like, oh, you don't know that already? And it's like, no, I don't, I'm still learning.
Tell me.
Yeah. So do that. It was actually really amazing. It was really great to be able to get that experience and to kind of switch my brain over from production mode into this world of development, which is very, very different and very specific and complicated. So that was great. So that was the first step of moving to London. And then, so kind of to roll it back a little bit. So when I was in my semester abroad in London, I met this boy / man, I guess at that point. We dated for a little bit while I was there, but I was 20. I had to go back and finish my degree in LA. We kept in very infrequent contact. But when I decided I wanted to move to London, I went for a visit probably about a year and a half before to kind of like check it out. And I reconnected with him and I was like, hey, I'm going to be in London. Can we get a drink? Can we hang out? Whatever. Just kind of reaching out to all the people that I knew in London at the time. And we just started talking again. And then over the kind of next year, I would say we fell in love.
Oh.
Yeah. So then after I finished my degree, we got married. And that is how I can still live here.
Well done.
Yes.
So we recommend it for everyone.
If you can, British men, there's lots of them over here. So
it's riddled with English men over there.
With their adorable accents. And it's wonderful.
How fun. So now you're based in London?
I am.
But you also have this company that's operating in LA. How's that working?
Yeah. So when I decided to move away from LA, I kind of wanted to keep a little foothold in LA because I did have a lot of contacts there, and it is going to be, it's the center of the filmmaking world. It's Hollywood, and it always will be, So I wanted to kind of keep up with my contacts there, but be based in London, which is what I am now. So essentially, I moved over after I finished my program here in London. I set up a limited company, and I essentially kind of, to roll it back a little bit. So when Rachel and I first started this company, it was kind of mostly for her scripts. We had gotten together as the two of us, and I wanted to produce and she wanted to direct these projects that she had written. But then, that was not very long before the whole Me Too explosion happened, Harvey Weinstein, all of that. So very quickly, this became a much more talked about issue. And reading all of that and following all the stories and these news made me realize in myself that I want to be a part of that global conversation. I want to be a part of this, and I want to work with a lot of people, and ideally a lot of people around the world, because I think the whole idea, especially we have this new wonderful word of inclusion, is that we get a lot of different perspectives from people from different backgrounds, people who speak different languages, people who have different colors skin. It's so many interesting stories. But what I love and what I think the kind of the heart and soul of what Emergence is that kind of human condition connection where, no matter where you grew up or what language you speak, any of these types of things, we're still all connected in some way. And there's these experiences and emotions that while the experience might be very unique, there's still an understanding and an empathy that when somebody else watches that story, they can still connect with them. And I think that's really powerful. So that was kind of, as I was thinking about moving away from LA, this kind of thought of growing the company and bringing on other directors and other projects that Rachel hadn't written, to be able to grow it into an actual, a business and something that I could kind of grow, I think, and grow into something bigger than just the two of us. So that was kind of, again, along the lines of if I wanted to move to London. London, I think, is like the third or fourth biggest film city in the world. There's a great tax incentive here in terms of the tax credit, the government support, government financial support it's there. Amazing. Like I think it's maybe not the best in the world, but it's pretty up there. They offer there's so many programs, so many schemes. I think the British government is very quick to react. And I know probably some people won't agree with me on this, but especially compared to the United States, there's so many things that the government does to support art for art's sake, not just for commercial gain, not just for the bottom line. They want to support their artists and they love to support their own, which I think is really cool. They're very, very supportive of British filmmakers and up and coming. There's training schemes, there's grants, there's, so many production funding and development funding you can apply for. There's so many opportunities. So it just seemed like a right step for me. And it felt more geographically central in terms of the world as a whole. Like thinking about Los Angeles is really far from pretty much everywhere else except like Mexico and even the United States. To get from one side of the US to the other, it's like 5 or 6 hours on a plane. Where here in London, I can get on a plane for an hour and I'm in France. I can get on a train and then I can be in France, and it's just like this window. I mean, when I moved, it was before Brexit, which, RIP, but
that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother story. But still, it feels like this window into Europe. You're so much closer. There's a lot of European funding as well that was available, hopefully still will be available. We'll see. It just, it felt like a more international place to be. And I definitely, that kind of was how I felt before I moved. And I definitely feel that way having moved here, that it just, there's so many, it still has its problems, of course, but their heart is in the right place. And I think they're making big strides to make those changes that everybody's talking about that need to happen in terms of diversity and inclusion and helping support underrepresented communities. I think they're really doing a lot to do that over here.
What are some of the things they're doing?
Well, there's a news pretty recently, actually, about they're changing a lot of, similar to the way that the Oscars are changing whatever it takes to qualify for an Oscar. Same thing for the BAFTAs. So they're saying there needs to be a certain amount of diversity within your cast and your crew. I haven't read through the whole, they made a ton. I think the press release was like 120 changes or something like that, like a huge amount of stuff. I think the BBC is in the process of putting together, they say they made a lot of announcements about they want to be more diverse. They want to be more inclusive, and everybody's getting unconscious bias training and trying to just working towards that and making more training schemes that are available to more people. Because I think a lot of the time film and TV is thought of as very elite and very, out of, and if you're not in the biz, you're not going to get in the biz, which is like, it's very not true, I think. But there's so many skills that people can learn and crafts that people can learn, but sometimes it feels like those are out of reach for some people. So I think, trying to help people from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, people with disabilities, people who live in the regions. So London is definitely very much a hub of film and TV, but the regions they talk about, like the north and northern part of the country, and just outside of London, there's a big whatever motorway called the M25. Outside of the M25 is more thought of as like countryside. So being able to bring film and TV opportunities to people like that, or I mean, even stuff like they offer grants for people who want to travel into London. Like if you like get there's so many things here. Like, yes, it is a limited amount of money and you do need to apply and you need to be, it needs to be appropriate, but they're still available, which I think is there. While there is money available to be applied for in the United States, it's few and far between. And there are, especially in Los Angeles, if there's one grant, probably 10,000 people are going to apply for that one grant, you know? So it feels so much more impossible to get that kind of, especially non-recoupable money where it's just like, here, have some money to do some art. We don't want it back.
It's rare.
Yeah.
So it looks like your company has grown beyond 2 people. How is that all going?
Yeah, it's going amazing. So we've had people kind of dip in and out, which have definitely, they've all played their part and they've all been really helpful, especially helping me get settled here in the UK. Was amazing. But now, so I'm working with a PR company called Danver Communications. My queen Cheryl over there she's been integral in kind of getting our brand out there. I think that's kind of the big step, and kind of one of my goals for this year is to join the conversations more and to do stuff like this, like be on podcasts and just be, as well as creating this content and trying to be that bridge between the creative entity and the financing. Because I think, again, especially for women and especially for these kind of more marginalized, underrepresented communities, that's a huge bridge that is not built yet. So that's a big part of what the goal of the company is. I think I am negative good at social media. Like, it is not my thing. I'm not very good at graphic design, branding. Like, I tried to do the reading and I was just kind of like, oh, I don't want to. This is not fun for me. So luckily I met Cheryl. So there's a Women in Film and TV is the branch here in the UK. And I met her at one of their networking things, probably, I'd say a year and a half ago or something. And we just kept in touch, and she's been helping me. We've updated the website. We're going to get a new website pretty soon, thinking about branding just in terms of getting stuff out there. So Cheryl's now helped connect me with our wonderful senior publicist, Sanam, who is a gem. She's only been working with us for a short amount of time, but she's a star. She's so well connected, and kind of this type of thing of just getting us out there a little bit more. Cause it's great to do the stuff. And we've got a lot of projects in development, which development is the slowest and most difficult and least glamorous part of filmmaking. And it does take a long time. So I've been working really hard to get those creative projects off the ground, which this year, 2020, was going to be a big year for us.
For everybody. It was going to be everyone's big year.
Exactly. So we were not an exception to that. So we had a couple of projects that were slated to film, we're going to go into production. That has obviously not happened this year. So I tried to take this summer to just let's build that foundation of who is this, what is this company, who are we, what message do we want to put out into the world, and to just kind of lay that foundation of, here's our social media pages. They're not blank or they're not looking a bit just kind of raggedy, I don't know, Sienna posting as every once in a while whenever she thinks about it. So it's all really coming together. So Sanam has been helping kind of do this type of stuff, getting some PR, some press releases, getting us in the news. And then just recently we have another junior publicist, Akila, who is going to be helping out more on the social media and Twitter and Instagram. And it's been great. I'm hoping to we'll see what happens, but the government, again, good old UK government, they're trying to put together a scheme to get young people back to work. So apparently 16 to 24 is the most unemployed age group. I think definitely in the UK, probably around the world, just because, junior roles and assistants, they're the first ones to go in a company because they're the least, I would say the most expendable, maybe as a nicer way of putting it. So they're really trying to get that age bracket back into work. So they've set up this scheme, which is still in the process of going through, but that they will sponsor a 6-month contract, 30 hours a week, I think, for a young person to join a company, fully paid for, plus a grant to bring for total. Exactly. I was like, free work? yes, please. Like,
sign me up.
sign me up. Yeah. And, you know, they've made a couple of hoops you need to jump through to like actually apply for this type of stuff. But they, you know, it's just kind of bureaucracy, and paperwork is one of my superpowers. So so that hopefully we're going to add some more people to our team. Cause I think, you know, me doing a lot of the kind of just day-to-day stuff and the outreach and the, you know, research and putting together pitch decks and all this kind of stuff. It is a lot. I love it, but it is a lot. And I think, you know, I just, when you get to work with somebody on a regular basis, it feels like more manageable, I think, and more doable, and more just the camaraderie and being able to bounce ideas off somebody or use somebody else's expertise and knowledge and stuff like that. So I'm excited. Yeah. And hopefully, you know, when these projects go, touch wood that, you know, I say when, hopefully it's soon, and we get kind of a little bit more of a regular income into the company, yeah, I can bring more people onto the team to just kind of fill those gaps in my knowledge, I think, because I obviously do not know everything. I do not pretend to know everything by a long stretch. So yeah, just being able to have more people on the team, I think is something that's really exciting to me.
So as you're thinking about the mission of your company and what sort of things you're going to produce and put out in the world for the greater good, how are you thinking about building the culture within your company? And how do you think about leadership in that way?
That's a good question. What first comes to mind is when I first moved to the UK, I signed up to be for the newsletter for the Time's Up UK chapter, because I know there's a Time's Up in the US and then there's Time's Up Global. So they've got this kind of big organization, but then there's a branch in the UK. And so I started going to their monthly meetings. And one of the things that, and I'm going to forget her name and I'm embarrassed now, but the woman who was the leader of the Time's Up movement loved the phrase linked, not ranked. Kind of like the mission statement of Time's Up is linked, not ranked. So saying that, you know, women, especially all over the world, we are linked. We're all linked together by the shared experience of being female or female identifying, but we're not ranked. So there's, you know, this kind of like, I've never worked a real job in my life. I've never worked in a corporate environment, but that kind of like hierarchy, like I get it in a sense of like how to make things more efficient. I'll put that in air quotes also, but I don't really believe in that. So I think just kind of like people have different tasks and people have different skills and people have different things that they're interested in. And one of the things that actually really inspired me is probably for my birthday, I would say probably 5 years ago now, my dad got me a book, Ed Catmull's book, which is called Creativity Incorporated. He was one of the co-founders of Pixar, which I love Pixar movies. I am a huge fan. And his book was absolutely fascinating because he talks a little bit about how Pixar got started and all of their trials and tribulations, getting that off the ground, which is great. But mostly it was about how to keep creativity alive in a huge corporate structure like Pixar, which is now Disney, you know, which is an enormous company now. But how do you keep creativity alive inside something that needs to be so regimented? And I loved what he was saying. And basically his conclusion was that, you know, everybody needs to have a voice. And even the lowest runner, the person who brings the coffee or whatever, if they have something that they think would be a better, you know, process or a better solution for some issue that they're having, speak up. Like, let's hear it. And, you know, he had the idea of like fail fast. So say your thing. If it's not right, don't take it personally. Let's move on. And I think that's such a wonderful way of thinking about it. So I think I would love to emulate that within my company of just saying like, yes, maybe some people are still learning about the film industry. And even if they're they're doing more research or they're doing more, I don't know, like a quote unquote lower position, they're still just as important because it's stuff that I don't have the skills in or don't have the knowledge to do or the time to do even. And so, yeah, just kind of bringing that all together in terms of that we're all going towards the same goal. And I don't think hierarchy should be a part of that.
Okay, what kind of projects do you have in your, what's the word? What kind of projects do you have in your hopper?
In the hopper, yes. Quite a lot. I'm constantly reading scripts. I'm, you know, constantly meeting with new directors, writers, filmmakers, and I one of the things I need to learn better is how to say no, because whenever I hear a good idea, I'm like, oh man, yeah, let's do that. But I'm kind of like, Sienna, you have so much on your plate right now. Like, calm it down a little. So I think the most imminent ones, I guess I would say, is we have a feature film, a comedy that is going to be filming in the UK that we are currently casting for, which has been an absolute nightmare, if I'm completely honest, because casting in the time of COVID is almost impossible feeling, but we are making headway, which is great. And then we're also working on a documentary, also set in the UK, which is looking like it's going to go ahead, which is exciting. Which is I'll share about that one because it's about a woman called Kelda Wood, and she is the first athlete with a disability to have rowed across the Atlantic Ocean completely solo.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's an amazing woman, and she's such a sweetheart, and she has got such a sweet personality, and she now has a charity called Climbing Out, which takes people with either physical disabilities or learning disabilities or trauma, who are suffering from trauma or chronic illnesses, and she takes them on outdoor wilderness treks, and she takes them, and it's all organized, and she takes them out on these to just kind of bring them back into themselves and say, it's not about what you can't do. Look at how much you can still do. Because there's so much, in people who are living lives like that they feel trapped, and they feel like there's so much that's not allowed or not available to them. And she just has such a sweet way of just saying, yes, sometimes life is just shit. We can't really do anything about that. We can't control what happens to us in life, but we can control how we react to it. So I'm really excited about that story. We're just finishing up an animated short film, which I'm so excited about. That's based on a short story that a friend of mine wrote, and that we're going to submit to a short film contest, it's just in the last stages of kind of post-production. So I'm really excited. My first animated project. I've loved animation my whole life. And this was kind of my coronavirus project. I was like, you know what? We're locked down. Animation is the one thing that people are like, oh, you can still do this because everybody's isolated or distant or whatever. So I was like, you know what? Yes, let's do this. So that's been super exciting. But yeah, we have a full slate of stuff that is kind of in varying stages of development, constantly looking for new partnerships, constantly finding things, and then they go away, and then other things come, and it's a constant swinging pendulum, which is just, that's it. That's what the film industry is. And it's kind of trying to figure out that balance of like, what do we have that I can continue working on, and what are the things that we're just kind of like, you know what, that we have that here, and I'll keep my eye out for different opportunities or different, I'm constantly reading the news, constantly trying to figure out what's the next thing that we can do and that we can apply for in terms of financing or in terms of partnerships, all of that stuff. So yeah, we've got a lot in the hopper.
Yeah, it sounds like way more than a full-time job.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm looking at your whiteboard behind you, and I'm wondering what your process is. I can't read it, which is a little frustrating. But
that's a good question. So my whiteboard right now, my brand new whiteboard, I should say, it
looks very pretty. It's color coded. It's got squiggles. It's got all kinds of, looks like different projects on it.
Definitely. Yeah, I've got it. It's divided into 6 right now. So we've got feature films, documentaries, scripted series, unscripted series, and shorts. And then the 6th one is possible projects, ? So either scripts I've read that I really like, that I'm in conversations with, or ideas or concepts that we're still kind of playing around if we want to take on. So the process, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's kind of a big mix of things. So I get sent a lot of scripts by people I know, or people who have connected me, say, everybody, I think I've been pretty vocal about my love of supporting women. So that's kind of pervaded my circle of acquaintances. But
you're getting all the lady scripts.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is amazing. And I love it. So I read a lot of scripts. We get stuff solicited through our website sometimes, through agents and sometimes lawyers. I am part of Melissa Silverstein, Queen Melissa of Women and Hollywood. She's put together a group called the Girls Club, which is kind of like trying to be the opposite end of like the kind of the old boys club, trying to bring together women to to help lift each other up, essentially, and to ask questions and to learn, to connect. So I'm a member of that. And I've connected with some people through there, which has been wonderful. So yeah, so I think it's like if I get a script that I really like, it depends on, like, projects come at a ton of different stages. So sometimes it's like a draft of a script, which still maybe needs some work and development. Sometimes it's a finished script that has creative teams attached already, so a director attached, or even some actors attached, sometimes with financing or connections to financing, pending certain things. It's every single project is different for sure. But really, I mean, honestly, what makes me want to work on a project is if I feel connected to the story. So if I hear something and I'm like, ooh, yes, how cool. Like, I want to be a part of this and I want to help get it made. And, you know, we are still very much a growing company. So it's something that, you know, I have my list of people that I can go to. I'm constantly trying to grow my connections. I was going to a lot of film markets and festivals and doing that kind of stuff. But so I have opportunities that can and places that we can pitch things. But it's still like you know, it's evaluating every project as it comes in and seeing, like, can I help this? Is this a project for me specifically as a producer? Is this a project for us as a company at Emergence? Does it, you know, follow our mission statement and our ethos? And I will say, it is shocking how many people reach out to us with projects that are just like so not appropriate for, like, where it's like, just, I mean, in general, it's just like very male. And, you know, there's nothing wrong. I do want to say there's absolutely nothing wrong with male facing content. There has to be a balance. And that's what I think, you know, there's not a balance right now, which is why I wanted to create this company to try to help balance out those scales. Cause I think I love men. I love working with men, and I don't want to try to negate their experiences. Absolutely not. I think, you know, men are a very important part of feminism and their experience in helping to create this change. But as a company and as a brand, if you're a man saying, I wrote and I want to direct this, here's my story about this man going about this journey and this thing, I'm kind of like, why? Like, why are they coming to you? Yeah. Why did you think it was a good idea to send this to me? Like, I'm sure your script is great.
I've been approached by PR people wanting me to interview their male athletes. And I'm like, do the tiniest bit of research.
Just a little, the top line.
The tiniest bit. Maybe it's a numbers game. I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe. Yeah, I would say that is definitely something I would say. Do a little bit of research before you. You know, there's so many people in the world trying to make films, which is wonderful. And I totally, wholly support everyone who wants to follow that dream. But be specific in those types of, you know, if you're reaching out for somebody to ask somebody to do something for you, make sure you're asking the right people.
There's a space for everybody.
Exactly.
Do you have a mentor?
Oh man, good question. I would say I've had several over the years for sure. There was a producer in LA who I kind of shadowed for a little while, and she got me a couple of jobs on kind of the bigger paying jobs. Who she was just like, take no shit, absolute badass, you know, running her own game in every sense of the word. And she was the person that I can go to if I had a dumb question. Or if like it was like a question that it felt like I was like, I feel like everybody knows this but me. Can I? And she would be like, nope, totally. Here you go. Here's the answer. That was invaluable.
And just to see that as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. To see her running the ship, literally producing these huge projects, especially when they were like shit show projects where it was just everything's flying off the walls and she's trying to hold the hurricane together herself, which she did very incredibly. Yeah, just seeing that. Exactly. I think, you know, the way like, what is it? Gina Davis says, if she can see it, she can be it. And I love that phrase because it's totally true. If you see someone else doing it, you're like, oh yeah, I can try to do that too. Or at least I'll try, you know, maybe I'll try not succeed right away, but I can at least give it a go because I can see someone else doing it. So that was amazing. And then once I moved here to the UK, there was another woman who actually was a lecturer on my course. And she came in and did a kind of a day-long program where she talked to all of the producers, all the producing students, and talked to them about like I don't know. It was a really personal and very intimate class, which I thought was really interesting. And she would talk to everyone individually and about your triggers and about how you react to people and how you react to stress specifically. Because as a producer, you're constantly involved with interacting with people, and there's a lot of stress involved in the job, usually, especially when you're on set. And so going around the room and kind of asking people these really interesting questions about like, well, what makes you tick, and what do you see yourself reacting poorly to, and how can you be aware of that? And I just really liked her vibe. And I reached out to her afterwards, and I was just kind of like, I really, I loved what you had to say in the class. I thought it was really inspiring and it's a part of producing that I think people don't talk about a lot, is that kind of just like, handling stress and handling other people who are not handling their stress well. That is a big thing, because everybody's stressed a lot of the time, especially when you're in production. So if somebody else is having a hard time, you as the producer are the person who creates the safe space. And, I loved that was part of the course and part of the program. So I reached out to her and I was just like, I'm starting this company, or I have started this company. I'm bringing it to London. I was looking for, investment at the time. And I brought her all of my pitch decks and all of my things and the slate. And she was just like, she looked at it. She was like, Sienna, this is amazing. And I was like, oh, thank you. Like I was just like, well, okay, that's nice to hear. And she was like, I want to help you with this. And those are the magical words that you hear so irregularly. Like I wasn't even going to her trying to ask for help. I just I wanted her feedback, or if she could connect me to people who could be able to help me. But she was like, I want to be a part of this somehow. And that just gave me the most amazing boost. So she was our non-exec director. She kind of acted as a non-executive director. So I'm basically as a mentor for the company. And I would meet with her once a month, and she connected me to a ton of different people and just, again, answered a lot of questions. And she's a life coach also. So she would just like, if I ever had an issue or if I was ever feeling stuck, she was always someone who I felt like I could call or ask a question to be like, is this something that that you could help me with? Or is this, do you know the answer to this question? Or do you know this person? Or do you know anyone who knows this person? I mean, any steps removed. So yeah, so having her was, I think, a huge boost in just kind of someone saying, I believe in you is such a huge thing.
Yeah. And I'm glad you explained that, because I saw her title of non-executive director and I was like, what's that?
Yeah.
What advice do you have for women coming up behind you?
Oh man. Yes. Advice. I love giving advice, even though I feel like I still definitely need to like take my own advice sometimes.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. Really, ask me my opinion.
Yeah. Exactly. I think a big one, there's one that I reference a lot, actually, when I talk to people, especially like young women who want to work in the film industry. And it's my favorite thing. So I think The Hollywood Reporter does these like actor roundtables. I think during the awards season, they get all of the nominated actors and actresses and they sit them around and they have a discussion. And I love these. I think they're really fun and intimate and cool, just to kind of get a sense of who these actors are as real people. And I think it was maybe like 2015, I think maybe 2014. I can't remember, but it was the year that, it was Amy Adams and Patricia Arquette and Julianne Moore, Reese Witherspoon. They were, I think it was 2015. And Laura Dern was at the table as well. And they asked, the moderator asked a question of like, if you had advice to give to your younger self or to any young people in the industry, what would it be? And Laura Dern said, I would give the advice of what my second grade teacher told us, which was keep your eyes on your own paper. And I was like, so good, because there's so much, especially again, as women, there's so much competition in the film industry of like who got there first and who did it better and all this kind of stuff. But it's like, there is no point in comparing anything. Everybody's on their own journey. Everybody's on their own path. Everybody's having their own struggles, whether they look like they're having it or not. So nobody's life is easy. And I'm hoping that like, while it's kind of a blessing and a curse that social media is kind of opening up that kind of the real side of people's lives, where it's like, even if you're a celebrity, you're still a real person. You still have you still have problems that people will have. Obviously their lives are different, but like, I mean, maybe that's not a good example, but I think that's just like,
yeah, Chrissy Teigen and John Legend this week
honest,
lost their baby and put it all over social media. I mean, it was the most heartbreaking thing and the most real, you've ever seen a celebrity in your life.
It's so awful. Yeah. That I think just that whole thing where it's like, when you're thinking about your own work and your own life, just, stay on your own path. And I do have to tell myself this all the time, where you see so many other people having so much success. But I think one of the best things that I was able to do is to kind of shift that perspective and be like, whoever you are and whatever success is out there that you're having, I am so happy for you, because you have clearly been going for it. And this is just a success that you deserve. And nobody should take that away from anybody else, or feel any kind of, anger or bad feelings towards someone else who's had a success, that even if it's a success that you want, that you don't feel like you have yet. All things kind of happen as and when, one day at a time. It's a process. That is the thing that I've been telling myself, especially this year. Oh my God, it's a process. It's okay to not be good at something at first, which is a really hard pill to swallow. And I know that. And again, like myself included, I need to keep reminding myself of that. But it's a process, and we all need to learn. And I think it's something that has really opened up my mind working, Emergence Films. It says it in the name. I personally love working with emerging filmmakers. So people who are at the beginnings of their careers and have this passion, and they just want to make films, and they're so excited. And if they make a film and it's not perfect, that's okay, because you made it, and that's a huge achievement. And for the next time you do it, you can do it differently, or you've learned from that experience. And just trusting that process, that if this is what you want to do and this is something that you've committed to, barring any kind of lightning strike or whatever, I have the whole rest of my life in front of me, which hopefully will be another 50 or 60 years. So I don't need to be in a rush to do everything right now, even though there's so much, the instant gratification of the internet and social media and all this kind of stuff. It's hard to not get caught up in that wheel of why am I not famous yet? Why haven't I been successful yet? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But just to kind of take that deep breath and be like, I'm doing what I love. And this is the process that I want to keep doing because I want to.
I love it. I think you're so right. When I first started doing this podcast, so many of my friends, in an effort to be helpful, sent me very similar competing podcasts, all of them hosted by celebrities, right? And I was like, this is not helpful.
No.
I didn't look at any of them. I'm like, no. I'm doing my thing. I have my blinders on. I can't.
Totally.
I am not the celebrity who's going to immediately have all the sponsorship. It was funny how people think that that's, it's just so ingrained in us. Look at all the people competing with you.
Right.
How do you feel?
Well, that was actually one thing that I used to do especially when I was younger. There was a time when I wanted to be an actor. So what I would do is when I would look at people, when I would feel the jealousy or the kind of when I see somebody who was my age, who was already famous, what I found out actually really helped was I would go on IMDb and I would look back. So I would see when they had filmed that first kind of quote unquote breakout role, the one that made them famous or kind of skyrocketed them to fame, and to look at how long they had been acting before they got there. And invariably, it was about 7 or 8 years. 7 or 8 years.
Never overnight.
Exactly. Even though all the tabloids want you, overnight success. They were discovered.
Out of nowhere.
Exactly. Who's heard of this person? They haven't been anywhere. It's so
on
not true.
Until yesterday.
Exactly. Absolutely not. It is their fame is now a product of hard work that for many years, a team of people who have supported them along the way and their love of what they do, because they're doing it because they want to and not because, there's many different types of fame. We won't go into that, but that kind of thing in terms of honing your craft, it takes time, and you do not need to be good at something right when you start out.
That's right. How can people find you?
Yes. Our Twitter is at Emergence Film, just one film, unfortunately. I don't know where the multiple films went. Instagram is at Emergence Films, with an S on the end. And then me, I am on Instagram. I'm at the Sienna Monster. because that's me. And yeah, please reach out. We have a contact page on our website. If you'd like, I take calls. I mean, we used to be coffees and meetings all the time. I love meeting new people. So my email inbox is open, and I love to connect.
Great. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you so much for doing that.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Such a nice chat. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Other 50%, A Herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Sienna Beckman for sharing her story. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. It is not too late to order yourself the Other 50% coffee cup for Christmas. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. Thanks for listening. See you next time.